Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox, and I need to be on the telly. I am the new John Curtis, it seems. There was a by-election in Dunblane. We did a video yesterday. It was a very unimportant election, but of course it was all to do with the result, because it will be another poll showing what the voting intentions across the country were. And I called it. I said it would be a Tory victory, simply by the number of Tory activists out there. And I said it would be a Tory victory. I said Labour would do well, the SNP would flounder. And that is exactly what's happened. The SNP actually came second, but the vote share was down, and it was definitely a swing to Labour. And this will be worrying, because every vote that happens now, election, by-election, council election, you name it, every vote is a swing from the SNP to Labour. And there was a swing. It wasn't the massive 20% swing we saw before, because that was an exceptional swing, but it was still a swing. And this will be very worrying to everyone in the SNP. They will be sitting there looking at Humza Yousaf and going, is he the right man for the job? And it seems increasingly, no, he isn't. Let's look at the results. Let's look at the swings, and let's see what this means, in the wider picture. So, as we say, the election was yesterday. The good people of Dunblane and Boffa came out and placed their votes. Now, only about a third of them came out. It was quite a low turnout. Not the lowest, but a third. It's for a one-off seat like this, it's actually not a bad turnout. But it does mean that, given the share of the vote, only about 1 in 9 people actually voted for the Tories, but they kept their seat. But that's absolutely fine. Somebody had to win it. But more importantly, of course, is that the SNP lost it. And they were in second before. They were in second again. But the vote share is telling the tale. It is the vote share, of course, that is the important factor here. So we will look at it, and we'll just go in. So the SNP trounced in yet another by-election as Scots Tories win again in Dunblane, with a very slight fall in the share. But they won't be concerned about that so much. They've got their seat and they're fine. But what is telling, as I say, will be what the SNP are looking at this morning and choking on their porridge. The SNP are fading fast in a by-election once again, as another vote adds to the growing weight of polling evidence that suggests Humza Yousaf and the Nats are heading for a very bad night at the GE. Coming soon. Watch this space. Can't wait for this. It's going to be an exciting year, so do please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Almost, over 60% of you, regular viewers, are yet to subscribe. And we are almost there. We are there, and we'd like to get that 10,000. And then, of course, nothing magic happens, but it's just nice to be a 5-figure channel, because it just gets a bit of kudos, doesn't it? And it's all for you. It's all for you. So please do hit that button. It does spread the message wider. Anyway, Humza Yousaf has suffered yet another blow after the SNP saw its vote share plunge in a by-election, offering more evidence to support the view that the Nats are set for a spectacular collapse at the general election. And boy, can we not wait for that. The Dunblane and Bridge of Allen by-election for Stirling Council, which is why I called it Boffa earlier, for Stirling Council, saw the Scottish Conservatives romp home in the affluent commuter district with 38.3% of the vote, and the SNP a distant second on 23.3%. Labour, who are widely tipped to topple the Nats, the Scotland's biggest party, saw their vote share increase to 20.3%. Now, still behind at this moment, still behind the SNP. But this is that kind of constituency. It's a very much of an outlier constituency. It's an affluent area. It's notoriously conservative. It's one of those where the SNP will very unlikely to ever get a stronghold and a foothold there. It's an independent council, I think, isn't it? Or no, is it a Tory? No, it's a Tory council. I had to think there. But I think there is an independent on the seat. But anyway, the whole point is it's not what the SNP got. It's what the SNP lost. And we're about to look at this. The contest opened up because of the resignation of former Provost and popular Tory ward councillor Douglas Dodds due to ill health last November, and was the second in a 4-seat ward in less than a year. Thomas Heald now joins his Conservative colleague Robert Kleinman, who stole an SNP seat last March, along with the independent Ewan Dillon, I knew there was an independent, and Green Alistair Tolomac. Scottish Conservative MSP Sharon Dowie tweeted, "Fantastic result for our candidate in the Dunblane and Bridge of Allen by-election. The Stirling Tories added, describing it as a huge win. And they said the SNP is fading fast in a by-election once again. And boy, are they right, because here's some numbers. Let's look at some numbers here to see how badly they are doing. Election analysts could look at the result in two ways. Compared to the 2022 council elections, which was the main election, obviously, the Tories were up 8.2%. And the SNP were down 2.5%. And Labour were up 8.4%. So from the last sort of general, I sort of call it a general election, but the last full council elections, non-by-election, Tories up 8, Labour up 8, SNP down 2. Isn't that telling? Isn't that very, very telling? However, compared to the vote last March, which was the by-election in the same ward for a different seat in the same ward, the Tory vote dipped 2.6% and Labour were up 6.8%. But the SNP fell 3.6%. It's an SNP fall. This is a big swing. This is a swing to Labour. And Labour, from the last vote in the ward, which was March, there's been this big swing toward Labour. Now, Labour are unlikely ever to get that particular ward, and that's not the important thing. That particular seat on that particular ward of this particular council isn't the important thing. It's the swing. It's the general swing of people. It's yet another example of people dropping the SNP and moving predominantly to Labour. That is what must be totally worrying and occupying the minds of everyone in the SNP. What can they possibly do to halt this swing? Is it a case now of buyer's remorse, looking at Humza Yousaf, realising what they've done, realising they've got the wrong man, and they're going to ditch him and put in Kate Forbes, who is socially conservative, is more, shall we say, electorally attractive, because she doesn't represent an extremist view within the party. She surrounds herself with people who are seen as more moderate and therefore would be more attractive to the voters in terms of not being an extremist party. Bringing it in, admitting, look, we're not going to get independence. Let's stop the independence nonsense for the moment. We'll come back to that when the time is right. Let's deal with the problems at hand. That is the only way the SNP can possibly stop the rot. Now, I think it's far too late for the general election. I think it's probably about time, if they wanted to do it, to save their arses at the next Holyrood election, which I also think will be a routing. I think there will be a massive swing there, but not as bad as some people think. Because by that time, you'll be 2 years into a Labour government. There'll be that midterm blues. Some people who went across to Labour will come back. I think that's undoubtedly going to happen. I still think the SNP will lose, but I don't think they'll lose by as much as people may think. And you can hold me to this. I'm very good at predicting these things. I must admit, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but that's 3 times now I've called it and it's been right. So let's see if I'm 4 times. Anyway, the numbers indicate that the SNP is no longer the electoral force it once was, while the much vaunted Labour revival is real and is credible. And it also suggests the Conservatives are still popular in Scotland and will offer encouragement to party leader Douglas Ross ahead of the likely Westminster vote in the autumn. And I think it is. I think Douglas Ross won't be too upset. I think he'll be sitting there going, yeah, we'll take that, considering where we are nationally in the UK. That's a very good result for Scottish Tories. But it'd be very worrying for the SNP. Anyway, coming up. So it seems every election the SNP vote goes down. Labour are resurgent. In this particular case, the Tories won, but whoever won was not important. What is important is that the SNP lost, and that has got to be replicated across every ward, on every council, and across every seat, every MP, every MSP, every politician. They all have to work out what they're doing. There must be massive tactical voting, and it doesn't matter who gets in. It's who you get out, and must get out this cancerous, toxic party that is destroying every part of Scotland at every level. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit that subscribe button. We're that close. Do please hit the like. Please share the video. And until next time, I will say farewell. Let's keep on the fight. And I will speak to you soon. Bye.